We're winding down in our study of Abraham, and that's coincidentally just in time for Genesis to kind of wind down its story of Abraham as well. But if you continue reading, this isn't the last that you're going to hear of Abraham. He plays an important role throughout all of God's story. What we see here in chapter 24 is that we don't just have a father that is preparing a future for his son, but he's establishing a legacy. Abraham believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. Abraham believed the promises of God. He believed in a promised son that would not come for 20 years. At the time of his death, God had promised land for his descendants, and he hadn't seen that promise fulfilled yet. But he believed it, and he taught it to his son, who taught it to his son, who taught it to his son. So much so that Abraham's great great grandson, I think I got enough greats in there, um, Joseph, made provisions that his body would be brought to this land that God had promised. Um, that promise wasn't fulfilled for another like 400 years after Joseph's death. Um, and so Abraham's his legacy of believing God is powerful. It is altering. It is belief altering that his sons and grandsons and great grandsons and on and on continue to believe in the promises of God, so much so that they make provisions for it, for the future in which God will fulfill these promises. Abraham didn't just believe for himself. His belief affected all those who came after him. If you read the names in Matthew chapter 1 or Luke chapter 3, how many godly men and women descended directly from the line of Abraham? How many of those men and women uh, placed their belief, their faith in God and impacted the world through that? All of this, these stories, this legacy was made possible because Abraham believed God. Um, I am supremely grateful for my mother for a number of things, for all the lessons that she has taught me over the years. But one lesson in particular always stands out when I think about all the great lessons and the things that she has taught me, besides how to make really good meatloaf. And it's this: about 2 weeks before I was going to graduate high school, we were sitting in my backyard on the picnic table, and she asked me, what will your impact be after you leave high school, after you graduate in 2 weeks? And I sat there and I thought about that, and I just burst into tears because I knew that I had squandered 4 years of high school. I had squandered 4 years of opportunity that I could have been using to impact my friends for Jesus. My friends knew that I went to church, but that was about the extent of my um, impact with them. They knew me as a football player. They knew me as a funny friend or something like that. That was it. That was my legacy for them and with them. To be a good friend. What is that? I'm not saying that's not important. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be a good friend. I'm saying that I had an opportunity, that you have an opportunity to take to impact your friends for Jesus. And what will you do with that? What are the things that you're doing in your life right now that your biographer will write about? As this biographer, uh, as he interviews the friends, those who know you right now, what will those friends say? What impact or what legacy are you leaving? Because maybe you're not concerned with the legacy that you're going to leave your children at the moment. maybe a little too far into the future for you. But make no mistake, the relationships that you have, the people that you are coming in contact with, are being impacted by you. What kind of impact, what kind of legacy do you have with them right now? What kind of impact, what kind of legacy does Jesus play in that? What part of the story does he have? Is it like me, where some of your friends know that occasionally you go to church and that's the end of it, or do they know, or should they know, that Jesus is playing a way bigger role in your life? How do people know, or what do people think that about how you feel about him, about God, about Jesus? Do they know that you believe God, or they just know that you believe in God? Do they know enough to mention it to your biographer in 10, 20, 30 years, or whenever some biographer decides to make a story about what you're doing right now? I'd like to leave you with this parting thought. One of my all-time favorite people to study and in history is Alexander the Great. He built an empire seemingly just of his own volition, of his own will. He thought it and it happened. He tamed his first horse at 12. He led his first campaign into war at 16. He became king at 20. And then he just conquered the world. His army essentially refused to walk any further, which is why it didn't expand further than what we know it expanded to today. And he died at 33. He had no heir. He had no legacy to speak of. Imagine that, conquering the world and not having a legacy. Right after he died, his kingdom divided. His generals fought each other. His country was defeated. And all that we really know of him is that he was great. But Abraham's descendants love God. His legacy continues even today through those of us that call God our God and Jesus our Savior and our King. So whose legacy was greater? The young general who conquered the world, or the old man who believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness? And his descendants believed God and they molded their life around that fact. I'd like you guys to take some time to discuss that. What will your legacy be as you go forward? I love you guys. I'm praying for you. I'll see you later.